Welcome, everybody. It's Friday, January 26th. How are we all doing today? Hope everybody's good. As always, how's the sound? I'm still playing with this. Hope the sound is good. Actually, let me know really quick, and then I'll go live on TikTok once you all approve. But it has to be a consensus. One person isn't enough. But let me know if the sound is loud. It should be. It's the same setting as last night, so hopefully it's good enough. And remember, if it's too low, turn it up on your end first, because if I go too high, it distorts the audio and stuff. But do let me know. Hello, all. But yeah, give me quick feedback on the sound, and then I'll get TikTok rolling first or next as soon as you guys give me that. Sound is good? Excellent. Okay, good. Good. That's good to hear. All right. That's enough of you then. All right. Consensus is sound is good. Anybody else weighs in? Slap them down for me. All right. Tell them to turn up their volume. All right. Let me get rolling on TikTok. Good. I'm very good. That's good. All right. TikTok. Boom. All right. Excellent. All right. And TikTok is rolling in. Lots of news today. Big news. Actually, very interesting news day. Very interesting news day. So lots of news. Trump and not Trump and everything else. So I'll start maybe in a minute. But anyway, welcome, folks. Friday. Whew. Busy. I went to the dentist today. Teeth are clean. Teeth are healthy. Very glad to hear. Although I'm not surprised. I'm good with my teeth. Thank you guys over on TikTok. Thank you, Swan person. For the rose. Oh man. Thank you, Swan, as well, for the animals. Sweet of you. Oh boy. So yeah, I was gonna get water. I need water. 1 second, guys. We're starting in 30 seconds. I need water in my cup. How did I not fill my cup with water? Sorry guys. Let everybody know I am here. Not going anywhere. Not going anywhere. All right. There we go. There we go. All right. All right. Spacing out. Forgot my water. I can't have a show without my water. Much better. Cold glass of water. Thank you. Who is that? Bryce. Thank you, Bryce, for the hearts. All right. Hey, Ash. All right, guys. So welcome. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report, my nightly show I do Monday to Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern Time, U.S. It's about the latest news. Thank you, Bryce. Very generous. And Maxim. It is about the latest news from Ukraine. I also cover U.S. news and other things that pop up. There is some Israel-Gaza news today. There is some breaking Trump news that we're going to start with that's pretty wild. And then we'll get into Ukraine. And there's also significant Ukraine news today, too. Thank you, Elizabeth. So there's a lot of news kind of across the board today, actually. So we've got, like I said, a good amount of news. So we will jump in there. Remember, tomorrow morning, I've got my coffee talk, where let's tang this down. Mute. I hate that. My dentist is sending me spam. Please rate us if you liked your teeth cleaning. I didn't like my teeth cleaning, but I guess it went okay. But remember, tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, U.S., I do my weekly hangout for the monthly subscribers, the folks who are the monthly subscribers on TikTok, on YouTube, on Twitch, Ko-fi, etc. Join us. TikTokers will join us on TikTok at 11 a.m. Eastern, and the rest of you will join us on Discord. It's already set up. You'll find it there. It's a Saturday, what do I call it? Saturday morning coffee talk, something like that. So come hang out with us. Hey, DBZ in the UK. So let me get rolling here. So welcome, guys. The way the show works, I will go through the news first and then take your guys' questions. But I sometimes do see the questions pop up as we're going along, and I will answer those when I can. Otherwise, second half of the show is totally wide open for questions, so fret not. We will get to that. This is my full-time job now. It has been for 2 years. So speaking of which, that is why I hit you guys up for the gifts. Please keep the gifts coming on TikTok and YouTube, because I am able to do this work with your guys' gifts. Your guys' gifts and your subscriptions quite literally pay my bills. You help me pay my mortgage and my electricity. Thank you, Stephen, which allows me to do this show. So thank you very much for that. Thank you, Running. All right. Okay, so the big story today isn't even Ukraine, although there is some big Ukraine news. Thank you, Marcy and Darian. I don't know if you heard about this. Thank you, Hedge, as well. Donald Trump just got hit with an $83 million verdict To E. Jean Carroll, $83.3 million he was ordered to pay. Thank you, Mustard and Tom. To E. Jean Carroll, the woman who the jury found he had sexually abused and defamed twice. The jury literally just decided like an hour ago, this is a big deal. That's a lot of money. Thank you, LWD. And when I say a lot of money, I don't mean for normal people. I mean, in terms of a jury verdict, $83 million is a lot of money. It's huge. Yes, it is a huge amount of money in America. That would be, again, that's equivalent to around 83 billion euros. Not billion. Oh my God, million. No, I wish it were billion. It's not billion. $83 million with an M, equivalent to 83 million euros. That's a lot of money for a jury verdict. I said billion. No, I wish it were billion. It's not billion. Not billion. I don't know anything about that, Carlos. I don't know anything about that at all. Why don't you write a little bit more? I mean, don't pay for it while I'm talking about the Trump stuff. And maybe we can talk about it next, but I'm not familiar with it. So what was interesting about this is, so this case, I was reading up on it again before the show. Very complicated. I mean, very complicated because there were lots of things. But bottom line is, excuse me. Oh boy, thank you, Christine. E. Jean Carroll says, and I'm going to watch my words because automated TikTok gets upset when thank you. That was a cough, but thank you. Oh boy. E. Jean Carroll, thank you, Ava, accused Trump of violating her. I will use that word because I'm afraid to use the 4-letter word because TikTok might get upset, right? Of violating her. She went to court. The jury found that he did, in fact, sexually abuse her. They did not find that he was guilty of the 4-letter word starting with an R, but they did find that he sexually abused her or sexually assaulted her, and they found that he defamed her. Because when she accused him of this, thank you, Napoleon and Stephen, and who else? We had somebody else there too, Pedro, and Napoleon again. When she accused him of this, Trump turned around and called her something like a nut job and crazy and this kind of stuff. And rather than just denying the charges, which he can do, he accused her of being this crazy person, blah, blah, blah. That's defamatory, right? You're harming her reputation. You're intentionally harming her reputation. So the jury finds, the first jury last year finds Trump liable for sexually abusing her. They find that he defamed her, and they fined him $5 million last year, right? Equivalent more or less 5 million euros. Trump turns around, gets pissed off after the jury verdict, and goes after her again. And he just goes nuts on her. Well, she files with the judge and goes, Your Honor, he did it again. And Trump's lawyer, or I should say, E. Jean Carroll's lawyer says, I don't even need to prove it. We've got the previous verdict. I want you to rule, it probably was a directed verdict or one of these things in the law. I want you to rule that he's guilty. And then we just finished the damage. And the judge said, yeah, he said the same thing he said before. We already know the jury said he's guilty. So he was guilty a second time of defaming her, right? Of maligning her maligning her reputation. And the question was how much money he owed for it. Now, she was asking for a lot. Her lawyer told the jury, look, Trump is rich. If you want to send him a message and tell him not to do this, you've got to charge him a lot of money because he's a rich person. Only a lot of money will send a lesson. Well, the jury ordered that Trump pay her $83.3 million. And what was particularly interesting about the verdict was 62, something like that, $1 million of the verdict was punitive damages. So meaning damages meant to punish him. And that means the jury didn't like him. Was it 65? Thank you, Jeremy. That the jury really didn't like him. That the jury basically was, striking out at Trump, slapping him in the face, basically, and that all of Trump's antics during the case, he kept speaking out in court, he kept arguing with the judge, he'd make snide comments, like somebody was testifying or a lawyer was making a comment at one point, it was their turn, and it wasn't Trump's turn, and Trump is sitting at the jury stand, I read this again today, going, con job, like just saying things out loud, right? Thank you, like a kid, basically. And today, during the closing argument, were the closing arguments today or yesterday? I thought they were this morning. During the closing arguments, of E. Jean Carroll's attorney, Roberta Kaplan, who I actually know, which is so cool. I know the lawyer in New York who actually did the case. Robbie Kaplan is doing her closing argument. Thank you, LWD. And Trump storms out of the courtroom. He's pissed off and he leaves. Well, jury didn't like it. I mean, jury, adjusting my light a little bit here. That's good enough. The jury clearly did not like it. Very interesting. Now, he's going to appeal. Thank you, Adventures. Thank you, LWD. He will appeal. We'll see what happens, right? Will she file a third suit? I mean, thank you, Doggy Dave. He's going to have to say something stupid to justify a third suit. Will he? There's a good guess. He will drag out the appeal. Yep. Look at the way he's dragging out the other cases. The appeals could go on for years, but it's $83 million. I mean, I don't think he's going to, the thing is, who knows, but I don't think he's going to win on appeal. He can drag it out. She's relatively young. I mean, how old is she? She's not that old. Is she young 70s? Alexa, how old is E. Jean Carroll?
Eugene Carroll is 61 years old.
It said Eugene. I don't think it understood who I meant. Is she 80? Could you guys go? Oh, is she 80? Wow. Okay, well, then she's got some age to her. People were saying that Trump does have to post a bond to appeal. I'm not sure how that works in New York. People were saying that. I see you guys saying it here as well on TikTok, but I'm not sure kind of how that works. In any case, this is a big deal. Trump is going to be pissed. Now, to me, election-wise, what's interesting to me with this is, will this influence the election? Okay, MAGA voters, honestly, Trump, you could find a dead body in his kitchen, 100 dead bodies in his kitchen, and MAGA voters wouldn't care. Would other Republican voters care? Maybe. I think one thing for Democratic voters, thank you, LWD, but also for Republican voters and independents, I think for a lot of people, the last few years, people forgot how bad Donald Trump was. And I don't mean you don't know how bad Donald Trump is, but I mean you forget the details, right? People remind me of things he said and did, and I go, oh my God, that's right. Oh my God, that's right, right? Thank you, Kronos, right? Like you just, I always thought like there ought to be a Trump Twitter account that every day just like issues all the crazy things Trump did that day, just to remind people, right? This kind of court case, thank you, Boy Mom, this kind of court case, I think, reminds people of not just how bad Trump was and is, but it also reminds them of the drama, right? Thank you, Arn Boy and Serial. Or is it Arn Boy? Arn Bort. Arn Bort Veit. Right? I mean, thank you, Marie. Right? It's the drama of it. Wherever you, it's the, oh God, this again? Right? Like this is all we get with him is this drama and the hate and the anger and the court cases and that, right? This kind of stuff. I think it's reminding Democrats why they need to turn out to vote. That's helpful for Democrats. I think it reminds people in the middle who didn't vote for Trump in 2020 why they didn't vote for him. I think it reminds Republicans who didn't vote for Trump, thank you, Jane, in 2020 why they did not. I also think there's a chance that there are some Republicans who voted for Trump in 2020 who see things like the E. Jean Carroll trial in addition to the other trials. Thank you, Ada. And they look at this and go, again, I've had enough of this, you know? So anyway, I think it's very interesting. All right, let's move on. So I've got two quick stories about Israel and Gaza and then Ukraine. There's a lot of Ukraine news today too, but the Israel-Gaza stuff is important as well. There was a very big story this morning. The United Nations has fired 12 employees of the refugee agency part. UN has lots of different agencies, UNICEF, UNDP where I worked, right? Like a lot, human rights, whatever, right? There's lots of different agencies in the UN. Well, one agency, I believe it's UNRWA or UNRWA or something. UNRWA, they pronounce it, but it's basically, thank you, Blue. It's basically the, and thank you, Carl, for that, the agency that deals with helping the Palestinians with support. Thank you, B. Smith. And Israel, what's interesting about this is, had Israel just alleged this, people might have said, do we believe Israel, right? Israel said this morning, and they had proof they gave to the UN, that 12 employees of the United Nations working for this Palestinian relief agency in the United Nations were involved in the October 7th terrorist attack on Israel. They used UN vehicles. they used UN facilities. Now, we have not heard any more details, but the UN looked at the evidence and immediately fired the 12 employees. It's not how convenient, Isabella. The UN immediately fired the 12 employees. Israel had the receipts. The United Nations would not immediately fire these guys. If Israel just alleged it, they would say, okay, right? They just fired them. Yeah, they fired them. They're now investigating, and they said if they are able to corroborate everything they've seen, they're also going to turn them over for charges because, of course, they participated in an act of terror. Now, we don't know any more details. To me, what's interesting is the allegation is used UN vehicles and UN facilities, meaning buildings. There's really only a couple possibilities. You used UN vehicles to ferry the terrorists back and forth. You used UN vehicles to ferry the hostages back and forth. You used UN facilities to give the terrorists a place to plan, or you used UN facilities to house hostages. Now, one Israeli hostage did say, and again, it was one, but one hostage did say she was housed in a home of somebody working for this UN relief agency. Let's see what happens. But I think, as Callum just said, not a fan of Israel, or the Israeli government, I should say, but they've got the UN dead to rights. I will say this. We haven't seen the evidence ourselves. Thank you, Adat. But for the Israel, here's the thing. Israel has been accusing the UN of this for a long time. Israel has been accusing the UN, this agency in particular, of working with the terrorists since October 7th. The fact that Israel came up with some evidence today that the UN immediately said, boom, you're fired, means whatever Israel's got is damn good. So that was very interesting. The other big story today is Israel and Hamas may be on the verge of a ceasefire. The story out today is both sides are very close to to some kind of ceasefire. Now, supposedly the deal is something like 35-day break in the fighting. Hamas releases all the hostages, who are not just Israelis, mind you, it's people from all over the world. Israel would release a slew of Palestinian prisoners that it has in Israel. The sticking point, which does not seem like a small sticking point, is that Hamas is saying they want a permanent ceasefire. They want the war to end. Israel is saying, no way. I don't see how you resolve that from Israel's perspective, because from Israel's perspective, again, this was the biggest attack in Israeli history, the biggest number of Jews killed in Israeli history in one day, biggest since the Holocaust. From Israel's perspective, this was September 11th times 10, right? This was far bigger than September 11th in terms of Israel's territory. It was so gruesome that it was not just a terrorist attack. I'm saying you've got to get it. If you're trying to figure out what Israel's going to do, thank you, running on, you've got to get inside their mind. And this was like America after September 11th, where it was so big, we were out for blood, but also it was so big that we didn't have a choice but to do something big. Now, America screwed up I will not say we screwed up by going after Afghanistan. We didn't have a choice. We did screw up by going after Iraq. Bush lied about that one. Afghanistan, in retrospect, what do you do? But there was no choice, In any case, putting that aside, I don't see how Israel doesn't go after Hamas. Now, you can argue about, we have argued about the details of how Israel's doing it, right? And whether they're responsible for killing the civilians, whether they could have been doing this in a better way, whether it's a war crime, this kind of stuff, right? And totally valid discussions. What you can't do is, not what you can't do. What Israel will not do, Israel will not say, you know what, we've killed enough people. Let's just let Hamas stay in power, let them keep their weapons, and if they want to attack us again in 3 months, which they've said they will, okay, let them do it. They can't. Israel cannot stop until Hamas is gone as the power in Gaza. So I don't think there's any way, unless literally Hamas says, we're leaving, we're disarming, and maybe we turn ourselves in. I don't know if Israel would allow Hamas to not turn themselves in, but there's no way that Israel would stop the war with Hamas still being in power in Gaza. So let's see what happens. But the news was presenting this as a big deal. Thank you, Bryce, by the way. I don't know if I thanked you for the gift. The news is presenting this as a big advancement that they're getting close. So that's good. All right, let's talk about Ukraine, guys. lot of Ukraine news too today. It's day 701 of Putin's 3-day special military operation. Ukraine, so the Ukraine aid, U.S. aid to Ukraine and U.S. Money to fix the border problem may be back on the agenda again. So yesterday we talked about the fact that Donald Trump had pretty much killed aid to Ukraine and killed any kind of border deal between Democrats and Republicans. Thank you, Kronos. What's been going on in the U.S. is our southern border is very porous. Lots of people have been coming across from Mexico, but not just Mexicans, even Chinese. The Chinese even have like a whole setup where they fly people to South America. They pay 10 or 20,000. CNN had this. It was amazing. They pay $10,000 or $20,000 and they get people to fly them to South America and then get taken up, to the border, the Chinese. So it's crazy. Well, we get it's a lot of people every year. The Republicans and Democrats have been trying to work out a deal, bipartisan deal. And Republicans have said, we will not fund aid to Ukraine unless Biden agrees to some big deal on the border with Mexico. So Biden's been trying to work out a deal. A number of Democrats and Republicans have been working for several months now, and it looks like they're getting close to a border deal. So what happened? Donald Trump spoke out yesterday and said, no, I want you to, spoke out. He called Republicans privately and told them, kill the deal. I don't want the deal. And what's interesting, because Mitch McConnell, who's the Republican leader in the Senate, said, basically, Trump thinks the deal is going to hurt his election. Because, and think about this, from Trump's perspective, one of Trump's big issues is the border, the wall, right? Mexico. He needs to be able to blame Biden for the border. Trump can't blame Biden for the border if Biden and the Republicans reach a deal on the border that fixes it. Then what is Trump going to do? He's going to say, look at how bad the border was and Joe Biden fixed it. That's not good for Trump, right? Trump needs the border to be a mess. He needs Joe Biden to be unable to work with Republicans so he can say, you need me. You need a Republican president. I can work with Republicans. So he told Republicans to kill the deal. And this came from Republican senators said Trump told us to kill the deal. He also reportedly called Republican senators and told them, do not fund Ukraine. I don't want Ukraine funded either. Thank you, Arn. Well, Mitch McConnell confirmed this yesterday, but then turned around today and contradicted himself and said, no. We are still working on a border deal. We're still working on a Ukraine deal, Ukraine aid deal. And, excuse me. Oh, sneeze. Sorry about that. Ooh, my dog hates it when I sneeze. She always jumps up. It's like, what's going on? And McConnell says, who's the top Republican in the U.S. Senate, thank you, Red, thank you, everybody. McConnell said, no, we're still working on the deal. So I don't know what's going on. Now, keep in mind, in order for a border deal to be done, and therefore in order for a Ukraine aid deal to be done, it's got to pass the House and Senate. McConnell only speaks for the Senate. The House is full of MAGA Republicans who truly will do anything Trump wants. So I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced that they're going to be able to. I have to see this. Bless you. That's very cute, James. I figured it was. Bless you in Ukrainian. I thought I saw Zdorovi, but Bucha. That's cute. Is Bucha bless you? A bless, I'm guessing? Zdorovi. Is Zdorovi your health? Probably like bless your health, maybe? I'm guessing. Don't know that much Ukrainian or Russian for that matter. In any case, that's where things are right now. But McConnell, be healthy. Okay, there you go. Thank you. So McConnell says they're still negotiating. So, do your stuff. There you go. Good job. I like how the mods and I are of one mindset. The Greek goat that Nir Vardalos turned me on to, the actress in my Big Fat Greek Wedding. I love this. It's my Greek goat. But whenever the Greek goat goes off, there's a troll. There's a troll on Twitter to be kicked out of the room. We just had one. More news. No news on the possible prisoners of war. So there was a very weird story the last few days where Russia is claiming that Ukraine shot down a Russian plane carrying Ukrainian prisoners of war. We have no idea if this is true. Russia lies about literally everything, unfortunately, especially things dealing with the war. And now they say Russia's doing an investigation. There is zero that can or will or has come out of Russia that we should believe. Zero. So their investigation will do nothing. They will literally have to turn over body parts that Ukraine can check the DNA and see if it's the prisoners of war. That's the only way. Thank you, Arn. That's the only way to confirm if these are the prisoners of war. Now, Russia's been playing a really weird game because they're trying to accuse Ukraine of a war crime. Thank you, Arifa. By by shooting down a Russian plane, military plane, that is, of course, Ukraine's right to do in war. They absolutely can shoot down a military plane. Thank you, M. Fuller. That's not a war crime. But they're claiming it's a war crime because the Ukrainian prisoners of war were allegedly on the plane. And it's like, well, how is it a war crime if Ukraine accidentally shoots down a Russian plane, which it can shoot down, but didn't know, accidentally meaning intentionally, but didn't know that Ukraine's troops were on the plane, prisoners of war were there? How is that a war crime? It's not a war crime. But keep it, again, Russia lies, right? Not only do they lie, but everything Russia does is meant, and by the way, in Ukraine, in the Middle East, everything Russia does is meant to confuse. It's just meant, all the lies are meant to confuse you. So all they want people to hear is, oh, Ukraine war crime, right? And even the POWs, right? Oh, Ukraine killed 65 prisoners of war of their own people. They want Ukrainians to go, oh my God. They want every Ukrainian family who has someone being held in Russia, they want that family to think, oh my God, was my loved one killed? That's why Russia is doing this. It is literally terrorism against every single Ukrainian mom, dad, wife, husband, child. That's what this is. Again, there's no news today. I mean, Russia issued a whole bunch of lies, which I'm not going to repeat because there's no way to verify them and there's no reason to believe them. We're going to need either an independent investigation like the United Nations, or we're going to need Russia literally turning over body parts. And even the body parts, to be honest, Russia. Russia could have just taken the POW from prison and killed him and chopped him up and said, here's his arm. It was in a plane crash, right? There's literally almost no way to verify any of this. It's really unfortunate. Thank you, Timothy. Final point I'm going to raise again, because I mentioned this to you guys yesterday. Russia's done this before. There is a possibility that Russia killed these, that there were prisoners of war on the plane. And there's a possibility Russia killed them on purpose. Russia's done it before. Russia, back in 2022, remember in Mariupol, southeastern Ukraine, the town with the steel plant, and there were 2,000 Russian troops, excuse me, 2,000 Ukrainian troops from the Azov battalion, half of them I think were Azov battalion, fighting 14,000 Russians. 2,000 Ukrainians fighting 14,000 Russians, right? Huge, huge. Thank you, Kronos. And they held them off. The Ukrainians held the Russians off for 2 months. I mean, an amazing battle. Well, finally, they ran out of ammunition. They ran out of food and water. They were going to be dead in a week. And Zelensky told them and said, you know what? Just, turn yourselves in. You're heroes. We'd rather have you alive than dead, right? You've done what you can. Russia arrests them, sends a bunch of them to Russia for trial, which of course you can't try them. They didn't do anything. They're soldiers. But Russia can, because Russia's not a nation of laws. And they take some of them, like 50 of them, and put them in a prison in eastern Ukraine. Well, what does Russia do next? They blow up the prison and they kill all 50 prisoners. Conveniently, none of the Russian prison guards were in the area where the 50 Ukrainian prisoners were. All 50 Ukrainian prisoners died. None of the Russians died. Russia says, oh, Ukraine hit the building with a HIMARS strike. They used it. They love to say it was an American weapon. This time they're claiming it too. Oh, they used an American or a French weapon. The French, by the way, are the new British. The French seem to be the new people who the Russians hate, because the French have given Scalp cruise missiles to Ukraine, and they gave a new batch. They're announced a new batch. Like last week, they were giving 40 missiles. So the Russians say, 2 years ago, Ukraine used a HIMARS, and they blew up. Thank you, Arn. They blew up the prison where we were holding the Ukrainian prisoners of war. Well, the United Nations investigates and goes, no, they didn't. It wasn't a HIMARS. It wasn't a Ukrainian weapon at all. What the UN basically implied that it was Russia. At this point, we know it wasn't Ukraine. And if it wasn't Ukraine, there aren't very many other people who would be blowing up a prison with with Ukrainian prisoners of war in Ukrainian territory occupied and controlled by the Russians. Who do you think, right? So this is what Russia does. I only raise this to say, Is it possible that Russia killed these prisoners in the plane on purpose? Yes, because they did it 2 years ago to 50 other Ukrainian prisoners of war. They blew them up and killed them on purpose. So would they blow up 65 and kill them on purpose? If they would do it to 50, which they did, why wouldn't they do it to 65? So there you go. Sweden and NATO. So this is good. So any moment now we should hear, reportedly today, Turkey was going to send the accession documents to the United States, to the State Department, for Sweden joining NATO. As you know, Turkey this week voted to ratify Sweden joining NATO. Every NATO ally, every NATO member has to approve in their parliament to add, if you are going to accept a new member into NATO, every NATO ally has to agree. So it has to go before the parliament of every NATO ally, and they have to agree to a treaty amendment, basically, that says, do you agree that we should add this new country? They did it for Finland, now they're doing it for Sweden. 2 countries were holding out, Hungary and Turkey. Turkey this week finally approved of the parliament, approved of Sweden joining NATO. Erdogan, the prime minister, then has to sign the document. He could have held off. He signed it, which was good. And reportedly, he then has to send it to the U.S. State Department. That's the way it works for NATO, because the State Department collects all the signatures. Supposedly today, he was going to send it today to the State Department. If he does, that means it's done. Turkey's done their job. And Turkey will therefore get the weapons, the F-16s, it was hoping for. The U.S. was holding them back. So that's great. Now, the big issue is Hungary. Hungary is run by a guy who I think is basically a communist dictator with, a new suit. Thank you, Red. His name is Viktor Orban. He's a far-right Putin crony. He hates Ukraine. He loves Putin. He hates democracy. He's been dismantling democratic protections in that state. And he basically has been holding off as well on ratifying Sweden joining NATO. He came out this week and contacted the Swedes, wrote a letter, and he said, please send a representative to Hungary so we can negotiate the terms of our agreeing for you to join NATO. And the Swedish foreign minister responded and goes, there are no terms. What are you even talking about? Thank you, Live. I was really good at the Swedish foreign minister. He goes, you already agreed, you, Viktor Orban, that you wanted us to join NATO. You literally gave us no terms. Literally gave us no terms. You said you're joining. So what terms are there to negotiate? The next day, Orban turns around and goes, oh, no, I'm fine with Sweden joining NATO. I'm in favor of Sweden joining NATO. It's just the parliament. Our parliament still has to vote on it. Hungary's turning into a little mini dictatorship right now. If Orban wants the parliament to agree to Sweden joining NATO, the Hungarian parliament will agree. Now, the Hungarian parliament isn't in session until the end of February, so we're going to have to wait until then. One, I would say, ominous sign today, the U.S. ambassador to Hungary came out and openly criticized the Hungarian government about this. Thank you, Montserrat and Arne. Criticized the Hungarian government about this because they said that basically, one, the Hungarian government's breaking its word. Hungary promised it would not be the last country to ratify Sweden. It is. It's now the last country. They lied. Second of all, and I'm trying to see, what was the actual quote from the ambassador? Where was this again? We're disappointed that this has taken so long. The fact that the U.S. ambassador felt he had to come out today and criticize Hungary, thank you, Arne, means to me that the U.S. is worried. The same concerns I've got. That Orban is saying he's in favor, but he's really not. He's still playing games. Now, do we have any power to make him come along? I don't know. But I must admit, I'm getting very sick of this at this point. What else we got here? F-16s. Okay, quick sip of water. We got another thing. There's a lot of updates today on stuff we care about. So this is the F-16 update. Thank you, Montserrat, for the rose. So F-16 updates. Okay, so earlier this week. Okay, let me actually go back in time. Mid-August of last year, 2023, Denmark pledges to give Ukraine 19 F-16s. Also, I believe they were doing it with Norway? Help me out, Norwegians or Danes. I think they were doing it with, I don't want to shortchange the Norwegians here. They may have been doing it with Norway. I don't recall. But Denmark promised 19 F-16s, okay, to Ukraine. 6 of the aircraft were to be delivered this spring. The rest of them next year, 2025. Earlier this month, a Danish newspaper citing the Netherlands. Okay, that was it. Thank you, Roma. It was the Netherlands. Okay, the Netherlands and Denmark. So earlier this month, the Danish defense minister reportedly says that the 6 F-16s due for this spring could be delayed as much as 6 months. Now, whether that 6 months means until October or when, we don't know. Well, today there's a report from the Ukrainian foreign minister that Denmark is proceeding as planned to get the F-16s. So we don't know. Obviously, this is of concern on many fronts. I'm worried about the U.S. as well getting F-16s. I mean, all of us, frankly. Actually, is the U.S. even giving F-16s? A. B, can the U.S. even give F-16s? Or would that have to be part of the deal with Congress, right? So I don't even know whether the U.S. was going to provide any, to be honest. Oh, thank you, Dawn. Look at you with your, well, I'll call them F-16s, whatever they are, flying jets. Thank you for that. So, let's see. Another big piece of news. Thank you, Chase and Sherry. Bloomberg is reporting, the Bloomberg news publication, that sources close to the Kremlin are claiming that Putin floated now this is just a crock of BS with the story I'm going to tell you. It's entirely possible the story's true, but I'm here to tell you that there's no way Putin is being honest, okay? The story is that Putin privately told U.S. officials he's willing to reach a peace deal with Ukraine. All Ukraine has to do is give up the 18% of its territory that Russia is currently occupying, sign a treaty that says Russia owns the territory, so Eastern Ukraine, Crimea, I say all, but right, Eastern Ukraine and Crimea. And get this, and Russia will agree that Ukraine can join NATO. There is zero chance, that Putin would agree that Ukraine can join NATO. Zero! I mean, zero! It's a lie. Now, it is entirely possible that Putin has passed this along, that Putin passed the message along, but it's a lie. Now, he knows the Ukrainians aren't going to give up their land anyway, but Putin wants to take all of Ukraine. He wants all of Ukraine. He's not going to agree to because once Ukraine joins NATO, then he can't touch it, right? Thank you, Carla. So BS. I think what's happening, though, is this is more, again, Putin was KGB. This is more of the spycraft. It's, again, what did I say about the Russians? Throw stuff out there and make things confusing, right? Make people think about it. Even though, A, Putin won't really offer this. B, he knows the Ukrainians can't accept it because Ukraine isn't going to accept to give up 18% of its country to Russia, right? He puts it out there, and for people in the West, they go, well, but Putin wanted peace. But Putin wanted peace, and Ukraine said no, right? Because he knows Ukraine's not going to say yes. So it's a cute way to try to put the blame on Ukraine and to basically give ammunition to the Elon Musks, to the Donald Trumps, the MAGA Republicans, to all of those guys, to say, to J.D. Vance, these American politicians who side with Russia, to say, look, see, Putin tried to stop the war and Ukraine wouldn't do it. So, yeah, so it's a lie. Sanctions. So some sanction news, actually, evidence that the sanctions are working. Listen to this. This was from Sky News citing Reuters. More than a dozen oil tankers carrying Russian crude oil have been stranded off the coast of South Korea for weeks. 2 trading sources have told Reuters. Ship tracking data back the sources. I see. Ship tracking data. God, this is quite a sentence here. Thank you, Ellie. Ship tracking data backs the source's claims. Oh my God, this is Reuters? No, this was Bloomberg. This is not an English sentence. What they mean is they investigated actual data that tracks ships, and the data did back up the claim that there's lots of ships that are stuck. It shows the tankers carrying around 10 million barrels of oil and are being delayed due to payment issues amongst the growing U.S. sanctions. Thank you, Arn, again for that. As of today, 14 vessels carrying the oil including 11 vessels and 3 very large crude carriers, are stranded. Thank you again, Arn. You are on a roll. Thank you for those gifts. India is also having a problem. I've talked about this one before. A source close to the Indian Oil Corporation told Reuters that the company did not expect to receive any Sokol, which is the Russian oil company, shipments from Russia soon due to a disagreement over which currency would be used to pay for it. Thank you again, Arn. So the Indians have been having a very hard time buying Russian oil because they can't pay for it. And the Russians want them to pay God knows what, but they can't. Anyway, the sanctions are not perfect, but they are having some impact, which is good. Last 2 stories. French Minister of Defense has transferred 2 additional LRU, which is basically the French version of the multiple launch rocket system, which is kind of like a HIMARS. I'll call it that. So an important system. Thank you, Vlare. I'll call you the Vlaret, maybe Vlare. So anyway, very important gift from the French. So that's good. And this final story, very interesting as well. Ukraine has invited the Chinese President Xi to participate in a planned peace summit of world leaders in Switzerland. This is the 4th, I believe, such meeting. Remember, they had previous ones in Saudi Arabia and some other places, and they didn't invite the Russians. Well, they initially didn't have the Chinese either. Inviting the Chinese is very interesting. I mean, it puts the Chinese in an interesting position because the Chinese, in a way, want to be involved because China increasingly wants its hands in everything in the world to show China's the real new world power, right? But at the same time, China is on Russia's side. So China has been playing a weird game of they're Russia's ally, but they're kind of pretending they're not Russia's ally. So this was an interesting move by Ukraine to invite them to come to the peace summit. Russia's not invited, so we'll see what happens. But I think it embarrasses China a little bit if China says no, so it's interesting. All right, that's it for the news today. Please do keep the gifts coming, guys. Remember, I do this full-time, and I'm able to do this full-time with the gifts you guys provide because that's how I pay the bills. So please do keep them coming on TikTok and YouTube. Remember, you can do monthly memberships as well. I appreciate that. Arn, you are just insane today. Thank you. Thank you so much. You're making me blush now, Arn. Thank you. And thank you, Richard and Ellie, as well. You are insane, Arn. Thank you. Crazy American as well. So yeah, guys, let's do questions. This is the part of the show we hang out, we do questions. I wish that crown would go on the head, Arn. Thank you for that. You know, that's the one thing. The crown would be neat if it was one of those things that went up here. They don't. I don't know why they don't do that. So yeah, questions, comments, your guys' takes, anything. The Trump stuff. Thank you, Frankie. Ooh, Hedge. Oh, that's very cool. Oh, I don't think I've seen that one in a while. Very cool. Thank you, Hedge, Baby Dragon. Oh, and Flower Lady. Yes, we have the whale. Do the wave for the whale. We haven't seen that one in a while either. Thank you, guys. I know we need to get me a crown. I'll wear it. So yeah, we've got the court case against Trump, the $83 million verdict against Trump for E. Jean Carroll. We've got some of the news from the Middle East. We've got, thank you, Amanda. We've got, obviously, all the Ukraine news. Ooh. I don't think so. Road Back to Fitness says, can Biden use something like Lend-Lease to get around Congress? No, because there's the president. It's not like the president has money. The Congress has the power of the purse. Thank you, Jane. As we say, meaning Congress has to Congress has to provide the president with money that he can give Europe, with weapons that even to lend it, I believe, they'd have to provide him with the legislation that says, actually, remember, because there is kind of a lend-lease legislation for Europe, for Ukraine. I forget what it's called. Congress had to pass it. So the president doesn't really have the power to do anything unless Congress says he can, right? So yeah, he can't. No, he can't. There's really nothing he can do. It's bad. It's bad. Oh, I'm locked out. Oh, did you get locked? Jane, where'd you get locked out of this? What's your account to tell people to make sure you're not banned by accident? What's the actual account name? One of the mods can look, if that's what you're saying, here on TikTok. Because they'd have to see the exact, at blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you've got it. But no, your name is actually at blah, 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 one word. Is it just Buford Crystals, or is it at Buford's Crystals 363 or something like that? Go and double check. Would it not even let you log in to say? Because your account name is at blah blah. It's not Bulford Crystal. I'll show you my account, for example. People often make this mistake on TikTok. I will show you. For example, my account is the Aravosis Report at the top. My account name is actually at Aravosis, see? Whereas my name is the Aravosis Report. There's a difference. So whenever you're trying to tell the mods, you've got to tell them at blah 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 name. Otherwise, it's hard for them to look it up. Anyway, a presidential decree. I don't know what that is. I don't. Oh, okay. Try that then. Yeah, try Bulford. I don't know, mods. If you can try a couple. I don't know whether you could just look at the list recent because Bulford was here earlier, at least yesterday, at the very least, if not today. Take a look. Must have just accidentally knocked them out because they're irregular. Yeah, Amanda's one of the mods, Jane, if you can work with her. So is Ash. Okay. Yeah, help if you guys can. Maybe something happened with TikTok and your login. What the president did in World War II Lend-Lease, that had to be Congress. It had to be Congress. I guarantee you it had to be Congress. The president doesn't have that kind of power, and they don't have the money, and they don't have the control over the weapons. You know? Oh, that's different. I'm sorry. So you're not, I see TikTok locked you out. I'm sorry. Okay. I thought you meant we locked you out of coming here. Oh, that's bad. Our troll list is huge, Carl. Sorry about that, Jane. Yeah. Okay, that's TikTok. Yeah, I don't know what that's about. We gave Russia a ton in World War II. That's correct. We gave them absolute ton of money. Yep. And actually some of the most important things were things I didn't even think of. Like I think it was radios, some kind of railroad something that was hugely important as well. Never paid it back. I wouldn't be surprised. But we were a huge help to Russia in World War II. They like to not admit it, but boots. I don't even know that boots. That's interesting. Oh, so what else? Oh, of course, the Russia denies we help them now. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Josh is saying thoughts on the fear-mongering around conscription in the UK. So I am not an expert on this. Callum can tell you a little bit because he's British, but I did see Sky News had a report on this today interviewing one of the, I think it was the outgoing British Army commander or Army general who said the stuff about conscription, basically some of the top British military people were saying, oh, we need a draft in Britain because Russia's so dangerous, Callum had mentioned to me yesterday that this is something that's been going on for years, like the military trying to talk about getting a draft. The guy in Sky News today, who I believe is the outgoing army chief or the former army chief of the British military, he said as well that this is basically BS, that it's not needed. It's kind of people trying to rabble-rouse, whether it's to get more money for the military overall. He also said, which is funny, he goes, conscripts aren't any good. He goes, we don't need new soldiers. He said, Putin can tell you how good conscripts are doing in Ukraine. He goes, new troops are not going to save us from a Russian invasion. He also said he doesn't think Russia's going to actually invade. Callum, I sent you the article because he had a line at the end that I didn't really understand in his interview. Maybe you answered me. I'll look. But I did not understand the interview. Okay. Okay, that's what he meant then. Yeah. Let me read you what he said, because there was, increasing concern about are the Russians going to attack or what. And in the Sky News article, here's what he said. Are interviewed with ex-NATO chief Lord Robertson. Earlier this week, the outgoing head of the British Army, General Sir Patrick Saunders, suggested British men and women could face a call-up to the army in the event of a war with Russia. Sky News asked Lord Robertson if Britain could end up fighting Russia directly if Ukraine loses. He said NATO's charter, which says an attack on one member is considered an attack on all, will, quote, make sure that Vladimir Putin stands well off from there, meaning Putin isn't going to be attacking NATO because he's terrified of attacking NATO. But he added, that doesn't mean to say he isn't going to go in other directions as well, and ultimately we're going to be in the firing line. I asked Callum what that meant because in English, firing line sounds like firing line. Callum said he believes it means, Callum's former British military, thank you, Sean, that he believes it means, cyber attacks, basically all the other obnoxious things Russia does short of war. Think of Finland, how they're sending all the, all the the immigrants across the border that they're getting from the Middle East, and they're just shoving them at the border of Finland just to cause immigration problems. So it's all that kind of stuff, you know? But I thought that was interesting. So I wouldn't be worried about it. No. Well, that's the thing. Dave is saying, how could they invade? They're so degraded. I think the concern, though, is 10 years from now, right? If the war ends with Ukraine right now, Russia really builds up its military for the next 10 years, could they do something with Poland? Could they do something even better with Estonia? You know? I mean, thanks, Josh. Appreciate it. You know, that's the concern. Why is Russia always the enemy? Kind of need to ask the Russians that one. No, I mean, you know, Russia sides with Nazi Germany, makes them the enemy. Thank you, Josh. After we become Russia's friend. Russia and us help each other win World War II, along with Europe. We helped save Russia's butt in World War II. They could have lost to the Nazis. We gave them tons of support, right? What happens next? Russia kidnaps the war ends. Russia kidnaps half of Europe. They literally occupy half of Europe and install communist dictatorships, brutal, murderous communist dictatorships, killing the population. The worst dictatorships on the planet Russia installed, okay? And goes around the world and causes all kinds of mayhem around the world, okay? Well, then the Soviet Union disappears. Russia has a chance to be free. Russia has a chance to be our friend. People in the West are even talking about the crazy idea of Russia joining NATO because they're our friend now. I've been to Russia twice. I've been to Russia and I've been to the Soviet Union, Dean. I have. And about Russia being our friend now. Well, what happens? Putin comes to power in the early 2000s and basically reinstates a dictatorship. Reinstates the Soviet Union in essence. He's trying to now take over Europe again. He's pushing around other countries. He's committing genocide again in Ukraine. I mean, why isn't Russia our friend? Because Russia doesn't want to be our friend. Russia keeps wanting to be our enemy. And what do you do about it? They invaded Ukraine. They keep basically threatening nuclear war with Europe. Would a friend do that? You know? So, yeah. So. Oh, could you hear her little thing tingling? She's drinking water, and Sasha's little thing on her collar, her rabies tags are tingling. So pretty soon she's gonna ask me for more water. So get ready for it. That's gonna be coming next. Thank you, Bonnie. Do I think another leader in Russia might befriend the West? Says Red. I mean, maybe someday, right? The problem is who, and we don't really know. You know, there isn't a really strong constituency for it right now. I mean, the concern is Putin dies, gets overthrown or whatever, and the next guy could be just as bad or even worse. You know, you don't know. So it would have been, I mean, a lot of us, I think everybody wished in the 1990s that Russia had just turned normal and was our friend. And they just couldn't help themselves because this is who they are, unfortunately. You know, it's sad. So. Anyway. Yeah, but Tired Guy was saying, you know, we're assuming Putin is in power in 10 years, but even if he's not, we don't. Put it this way. Russia right now, kind of a bad place. Is that Putin or is that Russia, right? It wasn't Putin during the Soviet Union. We had 70 years of a horrific government, of a horrific evil in the world with the Soviet Union. We had 45 years of the Soviets, the Russians basically, occupying Eastern Europe in brutal dictatorships. That wasn't Putin, right? The czars before that, the czars weren't Putin. I mean, at some point you have to ask, is Russia this way because of Putin, or is Putin this way because he's Russian? You know? So I think they could get another strong man who wants better relations with the West and who wants to make Russia democracy. Good luck with that. But, you know, it'd be nice. You know? Yeah, but Carlos is saying they've had dictators as long as they've been a country. I mean, yeah, you know, what do you do? You know? Ugh, it's horrible. You know? It is. I think he does have the Soviet mentality. Yeah. Not the communism, but, I mean, maybe he's got the communism too, who knows? But, thank you, Nicholas. But he wants the Soviet Union back. They controlled a lot of countries. They want them back. You know? Sasha, you're fine. Relax, relax. Sasha's whining. It's a little early for you to be whining, dear. Sorry, Mike is posting millions of trucks, combat vehicles, lend-lease to U.S. to Russia, aircraft, locomotives. Yeah, remember the locomotives? There was a lot of train stuff that was up, and the radios that apparently were super important as well. Yep. So, anyway. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. We can get into all of that, Callum, but yeah. Well, Hawkeye says, I read that Hungary wants an apology from Sweden for calling them a semi-dictatorship. Maybe. I mean, they are, which is the problem. You know, I mean, Sweden had called out Hungary a lot in the European Union on its backtracking. And Hungary not lost a lot of money, but a lot of European Union money. There's still 10 billion worth, with a B, 10 billion, that Hungary's not gotten because of going back on its commitment to democracy. Sweden's right. And it would be really bad if a European country, if a European Union country could basically, you know, unravel its democracy and get away with it under EU rules by simply holding everybody else hostage. You know? I mean, I obviously liked Gorbachev in the 80s. The Russians don't, you know? Joe says, my father almost died in a convoy to Russia in 42. Oh, that's interesting. What do you mean a convoy to Russia? What do you mean? What was that? I mean, what was the, what? I mean, German? Like, what convoy to Russia? Just curious. I mean, were there U.S. convoys to Russia? Mm-hmm. What else we got? Just curious. Merchant Marine, but who? U.S. though? I didn't realize we sent anybody to Russia, so to speak. If it was U.S., that's interesting. USA, oh, U.S. aid. Oh, meaning he was helping with Lend-Lease and stuff. Ah, okay. Thank you, Tiger. No, but it was helping with Lend-Lease aid, basically. That's, okay, that, I see. That's very interesting. Wow. That's very interesting. British convoys with U.S. aid. Oh, how interesting. That's interesting, Mick. Huh. No, we talk about Israel. International Criminal Court. Sure. You know, there. I mean, I didn't find it much of an update. You know how South Africa took Israel to the International Criminal Court or International Court of Justice, accusing them of genocide. The court, the genocide allegation will take years to adjudicate. The court came out today and said two things. What was it? The one was telling Israel, I mean, it's kind of a joke in a way, telling Israel, please don't do genocide, which, I mean, you know what I mean? It's kind of dumb for a court to say that because, like, yeah, duh, right? So I thought that it's kind of like, imagine a judge going, okay, please don't murder. It was a little weird. And the second thing they did was a little, what was it? They decided, what was it? There was something a little more pro-Israel that they decided today in the court. I just didn't find it very newsworthy either way. If anybody remembers, or you can Google it, but there was a little pro-Israel thing the court did too, I would argue. You know. What else we got going on, guys? Yeah, well, Putin and his KGB hardliners, Terry says, can never accept a unipolar world with the U.S. as the only superpower. Except China will be the other superpower soon. Thank you, Critter. I mean, maybe they already are. Who knows? You know? Is the UN doing anything actually useful? Supposedly. Thank you, Penelope. I mean, again, I worked at the UN, horrible organization, corrupt people, a bunch of rich, spoiled brats from all over the world who make too much money and don't work, and corrupt as hell. They've got the ethics of a turnip. Actually, turnips are probably okay. But the, you know, supposedly, who's that? Thank you, Alexander. Supposedly, the UN people working on the ground in the countries are supposed to be pretty good. Supposedly. I don't know. I've worked with the people at headquarters. They're horrible. The UN headquarters people are spoiled, corrupt brats. But I can't tell you whether the people, you know, who work for, you know, UNDP or the refugee people or whatever who are on the ground, whether they're any good. You'd have to talk to, but again, what worries me is the headquarters are corrupt as hell. How the heck could the headquarters be so corrupt and the people working on the ground are good? I have a hard time believing it. Maybe it's true, but I worked at the headquarters. I was at UNDP, horrifically corrupt place, and horrifically, the waste of money involved in that place was sick, and the corruption sick, from my bosses and everybody else. So, I have a hard time believing how you get from that to the lower down people are, oh, they're so good. And again, the higher up people, I went to the UN thinking the UN was going to be, people wanting to save the world. Like, right? Kind of like what you'd think the Peace Corps might be, right? Oh, they are not. They are people who want to make a lot of money and don't want to work, and they want to steal. That's who they are. So please write a book. I'm tempted to write a book about the UN. Trust me. Most corrupt place I've ever been in my life. My God. Would Russia and China ever turn on each other? If it's in their interests, I don't know how you'd get them to do that, but they could. China at one point saddled up to the U.S., what was it, 1972 or so, under Richard Nixon, that we sort of had the little détente between China and the U.S. So, it's possible. It's possible. I don't know. I've never written a book. No. Yeah, they have border disputes. Who knows? The thing with China and Russia is, Russia is a weak world power. They're a diminishing world power, right? Let's look at it. The U.S. has lots of problems. The U.S. has lots of opportunities, I would say, right? Because clearly something works in the U.S. as far as the economy, the innovation, that kind of stuff, right? But politically, it doesn't work. And there's very scary things in this country with the politics right now, with crime, this kind of stuff, right? But you could see in the long term how the U.S. could continue as a world power because of our ingenuity in the business, right? In Russia, again, John McCain, Russia is a gas station with nuclear weapons, right? Other than oil and gas and nukes, what does Russia really have that you'd say, oh, that country in 50 years, oh, they could really... No. China? Yeah. Right? U.S.? Yeah. China has picked a side. It's what I say about Turkey. Whenever Turkey starts giving us a hard time, or frankly, Hungary, right? Turkey and Hungary could align with the U.S. and Europe, or they could align with Russia, Belarus, Libya, Cuba, and North Korea. Which places would they rather go on vacation, right? Who would they rather do trade with, right? Who's the future with? It's with us. It's not with them. So China, at some point, I wish to God China would just get it through their skull that what if China and the U.S. were to work together? It would be scary for the rest of the world, I guess, if we worked together. But if we were able to work together rather than play this, oh, we're the next big enemies. The problem is China's a communist dictatorship, and we forget that. Thank you, Vlare. But, there's an inherent problem with China, right? It's not a nice government. Anthony asks or comments, better the West invade Russia than they invade the West. In what were you referring to, though? With regards to what was that, though? You mean literal invasion, or you mean cultural invasion, or what did you mean? You don't have to pay, obviously, for a second follow-up, but, yeah, it's not a small problem, Red, exactly. But it is true, though, I think economically and everything else. The U.S., Europe, and Asia were the future, right? Russia's not the future, Gaddafi, should Gaddafi have been killed? Gaddafi certainly deserved to be killed. I really don't know enough about the Libyan situation to say, should he have been killed? You know what I mean? Would it have been better if he had survived in terms of the future of the country and blah, blah, blah? That I don't know. I shed no tears over him being killed, of course. The man was a terrorist leader. My God, Gaddafi, dear Lord. Just look at Pan Am 103 for starters. My God, Google that one, So, he deserved it. The question is, was it wise? That's the question. Oh boy. I'm yawning at you again. Sorry, guys. I keep staying up at night playing my Xbox. It's fun. My nephew got me hooked on Xbox. Any news about Congress wanting to expel the speaker when back in session? No. I mean, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene kind of threatened it a little bit, but I don't think so. I'm playing Baldur's Gate 3, which has been quite fun. But yeah, so I go to bed late and then I wake up and I'm tired. I mean, I'm always tired. You know me. I'm tired anyway. But it's been quite fun. What else, guys? Anything else? We could always end a little early. I wouldn't object. No, that's interesting. Debbie says a UK oil tanker, Marlin Luanda, was hit tonight by Houthi rebels. Interesting. Not surprising, but interesting. Huh. So yeah, the Houthis in Yemen. I mean, they're going to keep, obviously. Let me open my, I'll look at my defense Twitter really quick. My defense people. Thank you, Chase. Thank you, Josh. Just to see by chance if there's any news on here. Oh, there you go. Okay. Yep. Callum just sent me a BBC story. An oil tanker is on fire in the Gulf of Aden. That's off of Yemen. Its operator says after Houthis said they hit it with a missile. The movement said it had targeted the movement says it had targeted the Marlin Luanda. I like Marlin Landau. I think I would have called it. Told the BBC the strike caused a fire in one of the ship's cargo tanks and firefighting equipment was being used to contain it. U.S. officials told BBC's U.S. partner CBS the tanker was hit by an anti-ship ballistic missile and a naval ship was responding. That means the U.S. and Britain are going to bomb Yemen again tonight, I guarantee you. I know. Just wait, Sash. Just wait. Interesting. Well, that's not good. Let me look and see anything else here. Ooh! Real quick here. Look at the Ukraine news from my defense types. Oops. Oh, please. I'm sorry, I'm reading this about Biden's long-term strategy for supporting Ukraine. What would that do? I'd like a short-term strategy, to be honest. I'd be happy with that. Yeah, and nope, no news here. Yeah, nothing there. No news otherwise. Yeah, I mean, again, not surprising the Houthis are still doing their thing. Yeah, the Bradley taking out, that was amazing. Excuse me. The Bradley taking out that Russian tank the other day, the T-90, was awesome. Anthony says, time for the West to come together and invade Russia. You're literally saying invade rather than Russia invade the West in 10 years. I mean, as I always say with things like this, you have to figure out, well, A, what's your goal? Does it accomplish your goal? B, can we win? Thank you, Chase. Would we win the war? And C, at what cost? Is it worth winning the war? Right? I mean, how many lives will be lost? How much industry? How much industry will be hit? Will the Russians destroy businesses? Corporate businesses across Europe? I mean, you know what I mean? So it's tough, and it's a nuclear country, which Callum is saying too, which is risky as hell too. Would Russia use their nukes? Maybe, maybe not, but it's a big risk. Yeah, I mean, the big argument. I am going to yawn at you guys. Sorry. The big argument that some people have is, should we have invaded Russia after World War II, the Soviet Union? But were we capable of invading the Soviet Union after World War II is the other question, And then you get to nuclear weapons when we had nukes and the Russians didn't, I mean, Thank you, Marie. I mean, Callum, I don't agree entirely. Callum says, who wouldn't use their nukes if being invaded and destroyed? I mean, you use your nukes if things aren't going well. I don't think Israel isn't using its nukes, right? Israel's got nukes, right? You know what I mean? I mean, you don't necessarily use your nukes just because somebody did. Russia isn't using its nukes on Ukraine. Ukraine invaded, so to speak. But I think you use them if things aren't going well. Or if you're Russia, maybe if the West were to actually invade Russia, you do drop a nuke on some of the troops coming in on Russian soil. And you say, it's our soil, we can drop whatever nukes we want. And if you want us to keep dropping nukes, keep coming. And the West goes, eh. So there is that risk too. Thank you, Tick. And knowing Russia, I could see Russia nuking its own town just to make a point. you know? And yes, Napoleon says there's a different threshold for when to nuke. At least allegedly there is. The Russians reportedly, not reportedly, they claim to have, but we don't know in practice whether they would. The Russians claim that they would use nuclear weapons as a tactical weapon. In other words, we would use it as a last resort, whatever. They would use it because, hey, well, we got a battle, we're fighting in this area, and wouldn't a nuke help that battle? Yeah. That's the Russian approach, and the West doesn't approach it that way, of course. We look at it as, you nuke us, we'll nuke you, but we're not just going to use nukes. The question is, would Russia actually use them, or is that just another Russian threat, so to speak? Oh, yes, we would use tactical nukes, right? Maybe. But it's a risk. You know? And it's a risk we wouldn't be willing to take is the thing. You know? You could totally see them nuking on their own soil just to blow up our troops and send a point. You know? But anyway, yeah, that's the problem, Anthony. I mean, among other things, it's just too much of a risk. Yeah, we wouldn't do it. I hear ya, but it wouldn't happen. And yes, the fallout could come west. There's all of that. Well, Chernobyl came all the way west. Oh boy. Oh. We'll have to wrap soon, so I'm not constant. I feel guilty when I yawn at you guys. I don't know. I mean, user 8882 says, what would the Ukrainian or the West response be to a tactical nuke? Well, okay. So we're talking about Russia using a small nuclear weapon in Ukraine. First of all, one hopes Ukraine has a response of some kind of up the ante, that they would go after them. But that would have to be a lot of drones. I don't know what it would be. The West would have to have a huge response. Would we? I don't know. Because Biden doesn't want to escalate with Russia because they have nukes. So Russia, for example, what if Russia uses a nuke, on Ukraine? Sasha, stop. Oh my God. She's like... She's so bad. Thank you, Witch and Boots. I'm looking where she's even sitting. I'm going to show this to you. I'm laughing. She's literally just sitting on the floor resting, but whining. So I can hear it. Look at this. She's just sitting there and she's going, like someone beat her or something, just sitting on the floor. But she's all pathetic there, lying, going, oh, God. Well, also because we're not even there yet. We're close to the time that I brush her teeth and she gets a treat. So, she's annoyed that I'm hanging out with you all. Anyway, we don't know what the U.S. would do and what NATO would do. Thank you, Blue Ariel. If Russia used nukes, we don't know. Oh, and Witch and Boots, yep, for the goldfish. We don't know. We are supposed to respond in a massive way that shows Russia never to do it again. Would we? For example, I think if Russia were to use nukes in Ukraine, they would do it in a way they would, for example, drop it in an empty field. They would drop a small nuke in an empty field to send a message. It wouldn't even kill anybody, wouldn't pose any risk to the West, but it would be a nuke, right? It would be a nuke. And I think that's the kind of stuff Russia would do. Russia would find some... split the baby in half kind of way. That's okay. Mods will get the troll, whoever it is. They would find some way to split the baby in half so that it was obnoxious, but not quite obnoxious enough that the West would know what to do. I think. I don't know what it would be. Don't worry, 19th. I mean, they'd come up with it on their own, but knowing Russia, that's the thing. It's what Iran is doing in the Middle East. How Iran is antagonizing the U.S. just enough to piss us off, but not enough to get us to bomb Iran back, right? What do you mean, Alexander? What message? What message do you mean? Oh, you meant Sasha was my troll, or no? Or what did you mean? Although Sasha is my troll. Now she's back in the bed under my chair again. There we go. There we go, Ash. Good job. Thank you. We got him. Oh, nuke in a field. Sorry, I'm going back to see what you said about nuke in a field. Oh, no, it wouldn't. But the thing would be, for example, I don't know. Ukraine's counteroffensive goes well. Ukraine is approaching Crimea. Russia sets off a nuke. as a warning. Take it as a shot across the bow. How you shoot at a ship, but you shoot beyond the ship so it doesn't hit. And Russia sets off a nuke in a field and says, we're telling you one last time, do not go into Crimea. Do not step foot. That would be a message. I think that would be a message. I think it would. I mean, whether it works with the West, but it would be one hell of a message. And it would be weird enough that it's not clear what the response would be. You know? Yeah. Jennifer, I think she gets pissed off that I do this. Because also she wants to play, and she's like, why are you not playing? Why are you not playing? I love my dog. I think that's part of what this is. I've always felt sort of social, when I was blogging, which wasn't social media, but in some ways it is, back in the 2000s, it was always fun to do a little mix of the personal with all the serious political stuff we were doing, because I think it's fun, you know? And you know, you get to know people too. Like, I think people certainly feel like they get to show you. She's now in her cat bed underneath my desk. Hang on, I'm gonna lighten this up to show you. She's in the cat bed underneath the desk looking at me. So this is what I'm getting now. She's literally right underneath, just looking at me like, please. So pathetic. So pathetic. Actually, neighbor wanted to play. I will tell the neighbor in a few minutes. Still online. All right. Anyway, all right. And I know, like, yeah, it's total guilt trip. Yeah. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. Let me wrap it up because I can go play with the dog. And it's getting tiring anyway, so it's already 20 after. Tomorrow morning, it's a Friday. Yeah, it's Friday. So thank you, Wayne, for the gift, last minute gift. Thank you, Jen, as well. I may have missed that. Courtney, I may have missed a couple of you guys. Courtney, hope I didn't miss anybody else. But tomorrow morning, we've got our coffee talk. So, yeah, Shabbat Shalom, exactly, for those who celebrate. Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, U.S. Tomorrow's Saturday already. I know, it's crazy. The cat paw. Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you, Super Hornet. So tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, U.S. Remember, we'll be hanging out. Special show that I do for the monthly subscribers. You can become one on TikTok. Go to my profile. Look where it says live subscriptions. Click it. It's like $6 a month or $7. Actually, TikTok might even be $5-6 a month. I don't know. A little bit more on the other services just because of the way it's set up. But you can go YouTube, Twitch, Ko-fi, the rest of you. Thank you, Lori. You guys can go and sign up via aravosis.com and join us on Discord. We will be at Discord tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Look for John's weekly coffee talk or whatever. You'll see it in the upper left corner. All right, guys. All right, Freddy Krueger, cute. All right, guys, then I will see you later. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, mods. Thank you for gifts. The gifts were very generous tonight, I could tell. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Jen. I appreciate that. That's always nice to hear. Always like to get more people. Follow me. I always forget to tell people to follow me. I'm really bad at the marketing. So do follow me too. And this is every Monday to Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern Time, U.S. We do this. Mostly focus on Ukraine, but we do get into other, U.S. election news. Thanks, Home Time. Appreciate it. We get into U.S. election news as well, because how do you not talk about that over the next year? You know what I mean? And occasionally Middle East, basically national security, mostly Ukraine with some, thank you, Jeremy, with U.S. elections increasingly thrown in, because what do you do? Thank you, 19th. All right, guys. Well, thank you. All right, guys, I'm going to go take the dog out in the hall and play a little bit. Super Hornet, thank you. And see some of you guys tomorrow. Otherwise, see the rest on Monday. And I've got to I'll set up the auctions tomorrow. I know I'm always slow on the auctions. Sorry about that. So I will set some of them up tomorrow. So, all right. I know we haven't done recipes in a while. We do have to do more recipes. I promise that too. All right. See you guys. Thank you. Let me pull this up. Joomp.